indexing and sorting. I tend to sort files, and I'll tell you why. Sorting creates a physically sorted file or table, and that is physically on your hard drive, and something that I just find more useful to have because I find that additional work that you're doing in ACL, let's say a summarize or a join, if the file's been sorted already, it just goes a lot quicker. I mean, even if you do a pre-sort on vendor number of a totally sorted file, it's just going to go a lot quicker for ACL to burn through that and join the files than it is to set an index. And setting an index, again, is very quick to produce. It's more of a logical type of production. And in meaning logical, it's in the brain of ACL as opposed to in the physical file. And once that's there, you can kind of logically then look through the data in your view. You can run later commands, but it tends to be a bit slow. As we said before, the setting index is something that you're doing when you're relating tables, so you kind of set the index. And that is something that we will talk about in a few minutes. And again, we're going to talk about relate and join in a second here, so let me kind of get out of my slides, get into ACL, and we'll just open up this paid invoice file for our purposes here. So now let's say we had this file and we wanted to sort it on invoice date, and we wanted to just get a better picture of our invoice dates sorted from high to low. A couple of ways to do that. For one, I should note, you can right-click and just select Quick Sort Ascending, and that will sort your data for you automatically here. Now, it doesn't create an index over here. It's something where it's kind of in the logical brain of ACL, sort descending. Again, logical brain of ACL. But let me now go to Data Create Index, and let's do that on, we'll do this on the, I guess let me try something different just to keep it different. I'll do it on the enterer's initials, and we'll set this to maybe enterer index. Now, what's interesting is that index is now available here. So let's say we can select it. Just watch this field right here as it changes for you. Okay, so now FS is up above, JC is down below, JL is after that, etc. So that's how the indexes are created. And you can create multiple indexes. I mean, we could create that other one on invoice date and call it, invoice date index or IND. And now for this table, we have a couple of options. I mean, we could select the invoice date index, we could select the enterer index, and it is interesting. I mean, it is interesting to kind of float back in between both of them if you wanted to quickly sort things. Another approach is to sort them like I do, and then kind of click on each file, and you would just imagine this for a second. You'd be kind of clicking on files to get to sorted 1, sorted 2 kind of options here. So again, that is setting an index, and notice if I come off this table and come back to it, I have this index back available to me. So ACL kind of remembers what indexes are related to that table. So don't want to say that this is a useless tool in any way. I mean, I think indexing is great. I tend personally to right-click and do my quick sort ascending and then scroll through the data. But again, you have another option there. And okay, and just give me a second here. Okay, so the other option is to sort, and we can go data sort, and let's sort on check number just to be different, and we'll call it check num. Oops. So check num sorted. And now we have this check number field. Notice it's zeros, and then it has some values, and it's all sorted. Now that check num sorted, unlike what we had before, and I'm just coming to these files here. Notice my index files are here, the enterer index, the invoice date index. I'm pretty sure this is the index of the actual quick sort ascending that I just did a second ago. That's kind of unknown to you probably, but that's something that is just there. But the enterer index, the invoice date index would be ones that you could use. and then you have the checknum sorted file. Now notice this is 123 kilobytes. If I go down to my paid file, where it's in here somewhere, and bear with me, here is the paid invoice file. Notice it is 123 kilobytes. So again, it's the same file, just sorted physically from high to low. So that data file, if I open it up in Excel or a text editor, if you exported it to those sections, you'd be able to see that those items were physically sorted in that fashion. Okay, so that is the difference. I find, and I've probably noted this, but in scripting, sometimes let's take a look here for a join. I can't find one. Bear with me 1 second. Here we go. So here's a join command. One option, of course, in the join command is to use the pre-sort sec sort. And that's something where, again, ACL is going to create those index files for pre-sorting and sec sorting, and it's going to do it behind the scenes, kind of like we were talking. It's a bit hidden, but it is doing that. And sometimes with really big files, that's not the best idea. It's a better idea to actually sort each file. So you'd open input 1, sort to sorted kind of thing. And this one you might do sort to sorted 1. And by doing so, you would then open up sorted 1 secondary, and then join, but then you don't need the pre-sort sec sort. So it's already been sorted for you. You've gone through that step. It is definitely more of an old school technique. I mean, most people use pre-sort sec sort, don't even think about it if you're joining files together. However, it is something where if you have very large files, it does make a lot of sense, and I think it's more of a foolproof way of working. If you actually go through all your scripts and force that in there, if you are scripting, that would be something that would allow you, not save that would allow you to just bulletproof that aspect of your technique there. Okay, so let me go back to my slides. Just going to move that up a little bit so you can read it there. And let's open this up. So the relate and join commands. So what is the difference? And we'll be talking more about the join command, but for kind of right now, we have the relationship where we're going to walk through that first and show you how you can organize various tables together. And probably if you've ever worked with Microsoft Access, you're used to seeing this define relation box where you're kind of dragging and dropping tables and highlighting this field relates to that field in that other table, and it's this whole define relation. It is fast to produce. It might be a bit slower for later commands, but it is fast to produce. It's a great way to organize various data tables if you're kind of playing around and just want to make like a data model. I think it makes a great picture of your data tables, which we can talk about. And I did read in my ACL user guide, I've never really done this, but I've noticed that there's 18 tables that you can relate at once. So, after 18 it becomes an issue, but hopefully that's not a problem. From a join command point of view, as we get to that, you are going to produce a physically sorted join table, similar to like a sort. It's a final table. Once again, these tables can get big. So, if you have 100 kilobyte, well, it's a very small file, but if you have a 100 megabyte table and another 100 megabyte table and you put them together, that's 200 megabytes. So you have to be a bit careful on the joining, that even though hard drive space is cheap these days, it might be something that you want to consider not using, or start using if you're worried about, well, sorry, you don't want to use it if you're worried about file sizes and hard drive space. You might want to use relationships more. So let me start out with the relationship more. We're really just going to show here how this works. I use relationships more to kind of play with data, take a look at it, and more or less I go to joining for everything else because it's just that much more functional of a technique. Okay, so I have my paid invoice file table open, and just to be a little bit clear here, I'm just going to create a new folder and maybe call it something like related tables. And just because we have so many of these tables here, it just gets a little confusing for you to look at all this. And we'll bring up the purchase order file, and I didn't get it into the right folder. So let me get another couple here, maybe the employee master file. I'm not sure if that's going to work for us actually, but I will try. And then the vendor master file, so that's probably a good one as well. Okay, so now that I have this paid invoice file, just kind of clean everything up, we just have that to focus on. I can go to define or data and say relate tables. So I have my paid invoice table here. I'm just going to try to make this as big as I can, and I'm going to add a table. So what we can do here is I can add my employee master table. I'm going to add another table, which in this case is our vendor master table. It just makes it easier for me to see them over here and then know what I'm bringing in. And we'll also do our final one, which is the purchase order table. And we can keep going here, but I think you'll be able to kind of get the technique here from these few. Okay, so the first thing you want to make sure of, very similar in the join command that we'll talk about ad nauseum soon, is the actual data field that you're relating these two on. So in this case, let me just make sure I've opened this up so you can see it. Bear with me. Okay, so this vendor number field, you're going to want to relate to this other vendor number field. Now, technically, you're just worried more about the type of those fields when you're relating them. I like to relate on character fields. I find that that's the best technique. I think ACL now allows you to relate and join on others, but I'm still going to just kind of go with, this is my parent table, make them character-based when you start relating tables because, again, maybe a bit old school, but I do find it's something, a better way to go. Now, as I said before, the enterer's initials isn't so much the employee number or the employee last name. So this table, really, you don't want to have here. It's not something that's going to be useful. So that is one that we're not going to use. But I have related on vendor number, remember, just so down here you see that, to this vendor master table. And the other thing I can relate on is PO number. So I'm going to drag from here to my PO number down there. And now I've related those two tables. Now, all of the fields here and here are now available back in my parent invoice table. So let me just finish that off. Now, nothing really happened. I still have these indexes from before. I didn't create any new indexes on vendor number or anything like that. But these tables are related. So again, let me go back into relate tables. Okay, got rid of that file I didn't need, mind you. And it's added these two other tables that you now can utilize. Let me go now to here. So we could do this a lot of different ways. I'm just going to work in my view here because I think it works fine. But I will tell you, you can go to like extract data, oops, and it will also, this technique we talk about, as you'll see in a second, it can also work in really almost any command that you have in ACL. So let me add to my view. I'm just going to say add columns. And notice it's saying from table, paid invoice table. So I don't know. We'll just take the vendor number field for now. Then I'll select vendor master file, and I'll select the vendor name. So it's a little tough to read, but this is, excuse me, this is the vendor name field here. I think that file was already in there, or field was already in there. Maybe I'll add the zip code as well, just to add something else. And then I can select the purchase order table and bring in the purchase order total amount, maybe the issuer of that PO table. Not sure if that was in there in the actual item. And this is interesting, vendor terms. We have that as well. Let's kind of bring that in based on purchase order number. And I hit OK, and by doing so, you start to get all of these joins. Now, let me just show you here. Let me add my PO number to this view, just so this, again, PO number from the paid invoice file. Notice I don't have paid PO numbers here. My data does not disappear, right? We just have blanks in the vendor terms and in the PO issuer. Once again, PO terms and PO issuer came over from, and PO total amount came over from that PO table. If I double click on the PO total amount, notice it has the purchase order file dot PO total amount. So it's actually telling me what table it's coming from with a period, and then PO total amount as the field name. So this is something that's useful. The only thing I would just warn you against is if you then try to extract this data, you can select fields, but notice I'm still only extracting fields from the current data set. So this is something where, like I had said before, you can go into these other toolbars here in ACL. If I wanted, let's say, add all these fields, right? Add everything from the paid file, go to the purchase order file, bring over the total amount and the issuer, go over to the vendor master file now, vendor enter, zip code, name, we'll kind of add a few fields. Notice now it's the table field added to this, hit OK. And we'll do this to a new file called paid file with, new fields or something like that. And now this table, physical table in ACL, all the way over to the right here, I now have these fields that have been added from a relationship point of view.